Good morning. Welcome back to Morning at NTV. My name is Mala Kivila Odera. Today we're having the big discussion about the revival of Uganda Airlines. The government has said that this is a plan that they have already committed to, and actually plans are underway to revive the Uganda Airlines. But what will this mean to our economy? And in studio to speak about that is Ramathan Ggoobi, who is an economist. Thank you so much for making time.
So it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Now, the government has already, set aside a startup cost of $400 million just to make sure that first we purchase the 6 planes. Is that sustainable? Where is this money coming from?
I think this money, first of all, is coming from the Treasury.
Right.
And it would be a good thing for Ugandans to invest in their own, products, their own infrastructure. The challenge with the people right now is that is it the priority we have on table? This debate of the airline has been around for some time. It started a few years ago, and that time the kind of projections were quite good. We had just discovered the oil, and people had a lot of prospects about it. The economy was promising to grow, at least by the figures which the authorities were giving us. And therefore, National Planning Authority and other stakeholders involved drew a feasibility study to kind of look at how do we run or revive this national carrier. And that study indicated that it was a good idea. With very good net, present values and those figures which sometimes economists are not so much obsessed with. We are more obsessed with the economic implications of a project. And the little I learned that time was that government was torn between two groups. One group was saying this is a good project. Another group was saying we can't run an airline as this government because of our history, our capacity to run things, and that's why we privatized it in the first place.
Right. And
therefore that debate is still on, and I don't know where it is right now, but most people believe that the airline would be a good idea for Uganda because we do not have a national carrier, and sometimes for you to work on your competitiveness, to compete with your neighbors, to compete with other countries around the world, you need to be traveling or to cut your travel costs, especially ferrying cargo, like our horticulture industry, our tourism industry, and so on. They need to be a bit subsidized by a national carrier. A national carrier.
And do you think that will happen in terms of costs now that, okay, fine, to be Uganda Airlines, does that mean that the rates will be favorable for Ugandans compared to the rates that the other competitors are offering?
Oh yeah, in the plan is actually to cut the costs.
Okay.
That was one of the primary objectives of reviving the airline, because some of these regional airliners, they're really overcharging those who originate from Entebbe.
Right.
I think you have flown around and you know how we are charged going to Nairobi 40 minutes, and you pay quite a handsome amount of money. However, that alone shouldn't, carry us away, because first of all you need to ask, why are those other airlines charging such high prices? Because is it that they are just doing it for fun? Is it that they are just trying to discriminate against us? I don't think so. I think it's because they are struggling to really break even. When you look at some, I will not fear to mention them, some of the airlines in the region, the Kenya Airways, South Africa, Rwanda Air, they have all been depending on their treasuries to keep in the air. Recently, I traveled with the two of them to South Africa, and we were halfway, in an Airbus.
Wow.
We were just half. And airline business is very expensive, the fuel, the ground handling, and so on. Then I also had an opportunity to fly with the Rwanda Air to Ghana recently, and from here to Lagos, the Airbus was nearly empty, you know.
Wow, yes.
We were very, very few. And I talked to them. I talked to one of the supervisors. I said, how do you manage to run the thing? And he said, you know, we are really struggling. It's tough. We are relying a lot on the treasury. And so we needed to analyze that.
Yeah.
If we had this feasibility study some years back, I know that definitely we needed to pay some cost in order for us to get to a level where we would want to be. But is it a cost worth paying?
Exactly, because my question is,
yes.
given those statistics and given that now we have facts that them that are already in that space are struggling because of the economic times, then is it wise for Uganda to get into that space at this time when others are already struggling? Isn't it a risk?
Yeah, of course, it's a risk which we are not calculating. Actually, we are turning it into an uncertainty because good, we need the airline. But the timing is also very critical.
Right.
Good, we had planned to buy them around this time and get back into the air. But what is the reality on the ground? Okay, there are some prospects for Ugandan economy to recover. At least the authorities have indicated that this year we shall grow around 5.8%.
Right.
But still we are below the target rate, which would have us, you know, go around and have bragging rights over the region. And regionally we know that there are other airlines which are struggling. Right. Within the same market we are trying to penetrate into. Not only actually region ones, even those from countries with a competitive advantage, like Qatar, like you know, the Emirates, they are also trying to scale down on their operations. I was reading somewhere that actually Emirates is going to cut its flights to Entebbe. Correct. Maybe, I don't know whether they're anticipating the competition from Uganda Airlines or it's actually what they are looking at in their projections in terms of the economy. But when you look into that, you need to be very careful the way you are going to revive this and check the kind of figures you are likely to hit. To me, I think the bottom line, the airline would be a good idea for Uganda, given that we are a landlocked country and we want to promote certain sectors like horticulture, like tourism and so on. That is the big idea, the generic intention. But now the reality is the opportunity cost right now of putting ourselves back in the air is quite very high, given that even other projects which government had committed to invest in, they haven't yet gotten the money. Like we wanted to recapitalize the Uganda Development Bank. Right. Government is struggling to do so. They had planned 500 billion and now each year they are giving them about 40 or so billion shillings. We have revived the Uganda Development Corporation, a very, very key, you know, sub kind of agency in the economy, because it's going to bring back industrialization, manufacturing on the agenda. Government planned to recapitalize it with 500 billion. They are struggling to get the money to put in it. So why do we add on another big demand at the time when we are actually struggling with the revenue? Because URA has been making a lot of shortages in their collections. Not because they are not doing a good job, but because the economy hasn't been allowing them to get money.
The economy is struggling. This airline was defunct since, you know, 2001 when it was, you know, liquidated. But when we take it back, now the government has already committed that this is a route we're taking and there's no turning back. Because already I know contracts are being signed to make sure that we start implementing. But then the big question is, do we buy these aircrafts? Do we lease them, or do we get in a code sharing ticketing, you know, structure where we partner with the already existing airlines? Of the three, which would be the best route to take?
When they carried out the feasibility, the option of buying was the best, buying the aircrafts, because leasing would have cost us some good money over time. Buying off, you feel the pinch at the beginning, but you break even in about 15 years. That was the original plan. But as I've told you, I look at now the realities on the ground.
Right.
You know, I'm a realist. I believe in economics which works. I would want to see, does government have the capacity to run an airline at this point in time? Maybe a few years ago, yes. Today, if you carried out any survey, you want to carry out any survey in Uganda, you will get negative response about government. It doesn't matter whether
Yes.
the thing is good or and you know, projects like this are run by the public confidence they have, because these are the people who are going to fly with the airline.
Right.
Now younger people are telling you, instead of paying tax of 200 shillings, you know, this OTT to government, I would rather pay 500 or 1,000 to VPN. Why would a person do that? That shows you that they have less confidence in the government. And the business is run on confidence people have in a certain project, in a certain management. So talking actually of management, that's where the secret is. Will government get a management team which is up to the task of
In
running
your
an
opinion,
airline?
do we outsource management,
Oh,
or
yeah.
do we use what we have?
No way. There is no Ugandan I trust in the government there to run airline.
Why are you saying
We should
that?
do, because I have run things and I've seen them before, how they mismanage them. I don't mince words here. I would really feel that government, if it is to run this airline, they should get a management team which is a private entity. They outsource it. And good enough, this is actually what the National Planning Authority also proposed in the feasibility study. They gave it a time of about 3 years. Let us get a team to run for 3 years to get it off the ground. And to me, I think actually it would be better off to fully ensure that that area is outsourced, because within no time you will see people giving themselves free tickets to fly around.
So it's not a capacity question, it's a corruption question.
Oh yeah. First is corruption, very, very rooted in the government, but two, also the capacity itself. How many people in Uganda, for example, have experience in running airlines? It has taken time. There is that team which government, the previous governments had trained to run the airline in the 70s, in the 80s. That team is now old. Some of them are around. They were very good managers, but again, circumstances forced them to quit. When the government started to asset strip its own airline. Actually, that airline, why it failed, it wasn't because of management or whatever, but asset stripping. Again, the corruption, selling the airline by bits. They sold the ground handling, and it was very critical for Uganda Airlines, because according to managers who were in charge, they told me ground handling was contributing 65% of their revenue, 65%.
Wow.
And now government came and sold it to themselves. And it caused a very big challenge for the airline to keep in the air, because, you know, in these markets of ours, you'll never have a good market for people who are going to fly around. How many Ugandans fly? Even going to Nairobi, there, people will board a bus.
Right.
So fly, not because they don't want.
Flying is expensive.
Flying is quite expensive for our economy,
Right.
our type of economy. So I think we need to get back that ground handling if we are to run this airline. And two, we need to start with the more cargo planes, so that we are into making money, failing things. Because the things to fail can easily be gotten than human beings to fail around.
Yes.
So we need to get cargo planes to take our agricultural produce, our horticulture products. Somebody may actually wonder, agricultural produce in a plane? Oh yeah.
Yes.
They are regional consumers of our food who actually have expressed interest in buying our food. But the challenge they have is we don't have cargo planes to take the food.
Yeah.
One of them is Equatorial Guinea. Those guys have oil money. They need food. And so we need to get more cargo planes than these other passenger
planes.
Jet, yeah.
The government is actually quite ambitious, and according to the feasibility plan that was set out by the National Planning Authority, when we finally relaunch the Uganda Airlines, we will be flying in 7 international countries plus 18 regional countries. For starters, is that sustainable? Don't we need to start small, grow bigger?
Ambition is good. The problem is being overly ambitious. National Planning Authority, they have been very ambitious in recent years. When they came up with that National Development Plan 2, it's quite an ambitious plan. Actually, the entire Vision 2040 is an ambitious plan. It's an ambitious vision. It's good to dream big. It's very, very good. That's actually what they encourage us everywhere, dream big. But you come back to some realities. One, have we benchmarked with the airlines which are in the market right now? How are they doing? Because some of them are scaling down on their operations, on their destinations. We need to benchmark again, because that was done, I think, 5 years or so ago. Today, really, things have changed. I always, insist on the facts on the ground, because they speak the real life out there.
Yes.
So we need to rethink these operations. First of all, let us get to the destinations where we can easily break even, we can easily compete, or where we have that competitive advantage in a way that we can facilitate our exporters, for example, to take their products, or we can facilitate our tourism sector to bring in more tourists. If they are going to do that, well and good. But I don't want to be also pessimistic. I don't want to be so pessimistic. I am a bit pessimistic about it.
Okay, all right. Now let's get down to the management. Fine. You propose that outsourcing management is the best route. But me and you know that the business in aviation, the aviation industry runs on loyalty. Today, if you're given an option, you're told, we want to book a ticket for you, I'm sure you will speak out the airline that you want. And that was born out of the experiences, consistent experiences you've had with this particular airline. So what will it take for Uganda Airlines to get it right on the experiences of the passengers?
I think the first thing they will have to do is to lock in the Ugandan travelers, beginning with the public sector.
Right.
They are going to use industrial policy. All government people who are going to purchase tickets, Uganda Airlines. No more, going around to shop around for airlines. But that is going to be against a lot of other protocols and agreements you have signed.
I can imagine, yes.
But definitely, industrial policy is war. It's not a party that we are going to fight with some of our friends. And that's option number one. They must do it. Then that again goes down to how we are going to manage the airline. The quality of the service, because service is what matters. Why people prefer airlines, mainly service. It's not cost, because people who fly usually have the money to fly around.
Right.
But they want good service. I know a lot of my friends who don't want to fly with the particular airlines, mainly not because of cost, whatever, the service, the type of food they're giving them, the time management, and because these airlines in the region are run like buses, the typical African. A flight is scheduled at 3 p.m. and you are at the airport up to around
2 hours delay.
Yes. They tell you, I apologize because of I anticipate that for our case. I don't know why. But if we can avoid such things, and we run a good service, we put in a good management, I think that will work for us.
Okay. Some of the people on the ground, Andrew Chamagero was speaking to Ugandans on the ground, and the big concern, like you mentioned, is the timing. They're saying that if we're saying we don't have money to make our roads better, we don't have money to give employment to the youth, we don't have money to make sure that the livelihoods of the common person, are improved, then is it the right investment? as at now. So the biggest percentage is against this. Don't you think that that's something that the government needs to relook and maybe check their priorities again?
Maybe on the hindsight, you know, when government is spending money, it's quite good to recover the economy.
Right.
When the economy is on a recovery trajectory, we always, as economists, encourage government to spend, you know, to pursue an expansionary fiscal policy. The challenge is where is the local content in that spending? How much of that money government is going to spend will come back to Ugandans. And of course, in this area, you don't expect much or even any, because this money is going to those who are building these aircrafts and so on and so forth. And even management, we have said it shouldn't be Ugandan. Let Ugandans work get some other jobs, you know, in the airline, but not to manage this airline. I really strongly believe that, not because I don't have confidence in Ugandans, but I think for now, for the airline, we needed to first get people experienced in running aviation. They take it off the ground, then later we can mess around with it.
And you said that it will take us 15 years to break even.
Yeah, about 15 years, because that was the original plan.
Yes.
But I don't know whether it is still the plan, because there are a lot of things which have happened. A lot of assumptions have changed. Like the oil has delayed. We have seen the economy also not growing at the rates which we had anticipated before. But 15 years is a good time I think, for the airline to break it, if it is managed well. The key, the bottom line, the password is management of this.
It's management of the airlines. Let me review some of the feedback that you're giving us on Twitter. At Judy Mukidi, you're saying, seriously, we as Ugandans are we thinking logically? That is what you're asking. Uganda Airlines will create jobs for the youthful Ugandans, trained pilots, cabin crew, air hostesses, cleaners, not forgetting the food market for the flight meals. It's one way of creating employment and income. This is her reply to what Omuntu was saying on the ground. Omuntu view is that this is not the right timing. There's unemployment, roads are not at 100%. There's a lot of issues that we're grappling with. So why invest this big chunk of money into reviving Uganda Airlines? So that's her view. We also have at Deki, you're saying that I thought getting down to earth, tracking the youth doing is the best thing in projects like poultry, piggery, brick making, crafting of shoes, and all those things. So he is saying Uganda Airlines is the moment of crisis, like we are not ready for this, that this is just another way of getting into more corruption crisis, and this is according to him. And so we also have at Michael Becky Winson, you're saying the airlines has a great impact on boosting our economy. We need it. That's a positive one from Mr. Michael Becky Winson. We keep them coming. We'll be sure to sample them as we continue. So we have those who are pro it, others who are against it. So let's see how this goes. Like you're saying, we truly hope that the management is outsourced, because it all boils down to the management. And us making
especially
sure.
starting. You know, starting things is quite very tough.
Yes.
And in Uganda, that's where we have had a very big challenge. Many of the projects which government had planned, actually, if you have been listening carefully to the president, he has always been lamenting about his government. This government of mine, the other day, was apologizing to Kenyans for failure to take off the SGR and the other projects we had promised to put on ground. So the problem is management. The problem is not resources anymore. The money, we can easily mobilize it now, because Uganda, first of all, everybody wants to lend to us. Yes. Because of what we are promising for the future. We have a very good plan for the future. We have a very, very enthusiastic population, young, energetic, educated, and trainable. You know, most people are saying education system of Uganda is a problem, but Ugandans are very, very trainable. And many people out there are looking forward to trainable people. But the challenge we have is management of public sector kind of organs to put these plans on the ground. It's implementation. I always tell people when I meet them in the government, the other time I was meeting them in Chankwan's cabinet and parliament, I said Uganda has 3 things we need to work on. The first one is implementation. The second one is implementation, and the third one is implementation.
Implementation, implementation, implementation.
Exactly.
Nothing else.
These are the things we are debating. It's a given. Those things, even if you tell Ugandans how they should do it, the challenge is the actual doing of those things.
Thank you so much for coming in studio. We truly appreciate your insight. We
you.
hope that the government is watching and that they'll be able to fill in the gaps that are there in that particular plan, and that implementation
hopefully
is thought through. Thank you so much for coming in studios. That has been the discussion. Keep your comments coming in. We will be sure to go through them and, you know, float them to the relevant authorities. My name is Makerere Business. Morning at NTV still continues. Up next is Take Note.